two before the one. Wisdom is water, I'm the daughter of the cannon fodder. Applied knowledge and insight, a born scholar. Look like a martyr to marauders like Tartar. Wise owl slaughter, whack MCs order applauder. Original woman, decipher the womb. Crown of creation, fruit of the planet Earth.
Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another episode of Wise the Dome TV. Today I have a very, very special guest. I told him off air, but I'll say it again on air. He's one of the first 5 percenters that I saw in media. And from the jump, when YouTube was first a thing. And I was always inspired by what he did in media, what he does in media, and he's one of the reasons why I started to do what I do. The God Saladin Allah has his hands in so many different things, um, a powerful history, and so we're going to get into a lot of that on the show. Saladin Allah, peace of the God. It's always an honor to have you on.
Yeah. Peace, God. I appreciate you too. And I appreciate you sharing that as well. I think a lot of people don't realize that when I first came involved with like being online and in that digital space, my intention was just to share things that I'm actually doing.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
I never got on there like seeking some kind of notoriety, or it wasn't coming from a place of ego and self-importance. It was just things that I was doing that I thought that people should have access to learning how to do in their own communities.
Right.
And just over time, it just became, more visibility for people to see those things. And that's really just the whole foundation of it. Just wanting to do things and share things that people will be able to use in their own life.
Absolutely. And I mean,
Hmm.
and you continue to do that. And I think it's inspired a lot of people, to create their own media platforms and, you know, walk in those same steps, because as we know, with Western media, a lot of times I mean, to be honest, it's a propaganda machine, right?
Yeah.
It's designed to socially engineer you to think a certain way. And it's always good to, whether it's not
Hmm.
just 5 percenters, but people who have a good understanding of what it means to be black and have a politic that is uh you know uh rooted in liberation and rooted in, not just the external, but also the internal fight that we have, all have to, go through daily. I'm kind of reminded of that when, with Imam Jalil Al-Amin, formerly known as H. Rap Brown, passing, because he spoke a lot about, and he did, he talked about the fight externally. We know his work with SNCC and and the Panthers. And then
Hmm.
also, he talked about whenever he became a man, the fight that we have internally. And so I think, in a way, like, the way you would build on mathematics on your channel or different degrees, or not even just that, or like what's going on in the world. I think you did that, or do that as well. And so again,
Hmm.
but let me ask you this though, when it comes to
Hmm.
being in media, man, as you know, like how do you,
Obviously.
it brings the crazies out, man. It brings the crazies out. And so like
Yeah, I know.
how do you navigate that, man? Because again, like myself, I'm not in this for any type of notoriety. I feel like, I'm providing
Hmm.
commentary and having great guests on, such as yourself, and then that and also inspired me to read, study more, go, preparing for these topics that we go through, buying these books, reading these journals, and then so
Yeah,
you feel that, okay, well, I have a competent understanding of what I'm talking about, and then
yeah.
you start teaching, and then they come disagreeing without even understanding the basics of what you're on.
Yo, so a part of that too is like the way that social media apps are designed, they are not designed for the purpose of critical thinking.
Mm,
You have to do some workarounds in order to utilize that format
hmm.
to stay true and consistent with critical analysis. You look at like Twitter or Facebook or any of these other different apps, you have a certain word count,
Hmm. Hmm.
so
Hmm.
it's real rehirewired, it's rehirewiring like a person's, cognitive ability,
Right.
and it's forcing you to truncate your thought process,
Mm.
even with the shorthand language that is used as opposed to just long, actually spelling out words,
Right. Right. That's a good
so
point.
even to get into an intellectual conversation, the timing and the pace doesn't provide for it in that kind of format. So it's difficult to be able to do that with people who are scrolling and they're not searching.
Right. Right.
They don't have the attention span to even engage unless you already are a social media immigrant. We come from an era where we wasn't born into this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we know about actually going to a library and
Hmm.
looking at a card catalog and
Yeah.
going and actually looking for books and then sitting down with the book.
Right.
And you have a whole different pace and rhythm to actually turn in pages, and you can stop and think about things. It's a whole different reorientation of time going through that process, as opposed to what appears to be immediate information with utilizing these social media apps. And then to even think about the integration of like AI
I was just about to say that.
and all of
Yeah.
this other crazy stuff,
Yeah.
it's very challenging, and we're not going to go nowhere where there is not going to be the use of this type of technology, and we have to figure out effective ways to engage people, and
Hmm.
one thing that I've watched you a lot, and I'm like, I wonder if the God is doing some kind of self-care,
Hmm.
because that's a lot that you take on in terms of, you know, striving to correct misinformation and having dialogues with people who things that they think is like, yo, what are you talking about? Like, I
Right.
don't know, like, and these are adults.
Right.
They're
Right.
adults that think certain ways, that have access to the same information as everybody else. So I think like over the years, I've been more careful with confronting those kind of elements,
Yeah.
and just
Hmm.
sharing information from my place,
Hmm.
but you in the battlegrounds though.
Man, I'm in the
You
trenches,
be
man.
I'm like, yo, like some of the stuff, but I also see that a lot of times the things that you share is not even for the purpose of striving to help that individual get understanding or clarity, but you're
Mhm.
just making sure it's a part of a digital footprint
Yes.
publicly, so that those who are watching,
Yes.
who have
Absolutely.
the ability to consider some things, you're teaching them.
Right.
It's like you having a conversation with this person in the public. So everybody that's watching, if you really want to, if you really want to know what I'm talking about, study this person.
Right.
This is where this quote comes from. This is a concept that this person advocated. You're really teaching them,
Right.
and I think that,
Absolutely.
that's an appropriate way to handle it as well, because I do see some people and they really are striving to get this person who a lot of times they don't even know. It could be
Hmm.
somebody with a foreign account that's
Hmm.
just trolling. They don't know who they are, to
Right.
really be serious about getting this person to have some kind of understanding. It's like there's no way to win that kind of battle, because the
Right.
social media app itself is not designed for you to be able to win that.
Yeah.
It's designed for the same thing that you said. It's a propaganda machine.
Yeah.
And I was seeing this the other day. Like I seen uh Shannon Sharp,
Hmm.
Club Shay Shay.
Hmm.
And I was looking at like the titles of his videos, and I'm like, man, him and all of these other folks, like they know how to grab your attention around drama and just some BS,
Right.
but real
Hmm.
substance. And sometimes you have to sift through a lot
A
of
lot.
stuff for you to get through, to get to something that you can utilize. So your platform is important because you just get straight to the substance.
I appreciate
You're
that.
not involved in all of this extracurricular drama, he say, she say, all of that other kind of stuff that gets the views,
Hmm.
that drives the traffic, that's being monetized, and all this other stuff. You know,
Yeah,
and it's
that
difficult to be able to do that in this this time and age, because that appears to be the piece of the magnetic, but it's really the piece without.
absolutely. And I
You know.
appreciate you saying that. And it has been a struggle at times because you are fighting for visibility with other channels that are, again, they lead with the drama, they lead with the controversy. It seems like the education portion of it is it comes last, or it may not come at all. And you know, it it can be frustrating at times, but again, we don't do it for the fanfare. We, as long as we continue to you know, make a difference, no matter, because I thought about it. I was like, let's say I got like 500 views on a video, or whatever, and some people may say, hey man, I'm getting 1,000, 10,000, but 500 people in a room is a lot. You know what I'm saying? And you have to keep that in perspective. And so again, like, I just do it in order to keep this conversation going. I found that the conversation often gets stagnant where we're, having the same old religious debates, or this false, and I'm like, look, man, the people that came before us, our contemporary scholars, they left a treasure trove of information, ideas, and concepts and frameworks for us to go over. Now, I would rather go over that than worry about, I guess, whatever the latest internet beef is now. Right now, it seems to be Professor James Smalls and Tariq Nasheed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's going to get views.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not knocking Professor Smalls. I know he's battling because I guess he's being attacked online, or and that's obviously a real thing
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of these groups. And I'm not saying that again. I stand with Professor Smalls, but at the end of the day, that's what's going to drive views. What about all the other videos Professor Smalls has where he's going over African history or African American history? Those should have the same amount of views as his videos addressing Tariq Nasheed attacking him.
Yeah, yeah. You know what, too, G? It's like when you think about actual community, you have certain social norms and mores and values that people hold in those actual spaces.
Hmm.
And when you think about a digital space
Hmm.
and the idea or concept of the community, you could clearly see that some of those social norms and those values and those mores erode.
Right.
Because where
Right.
else would you see something like that with an elder like that,
Right. 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 Right.
even in the same conversation of this even happening?
Right.
We didn't see things like that in our communities,
Nope.
and if there was some kind of disagreement, there were frameworks like you were sharing in place that provides for the ability to communicate about things like that with maintaining a sense of respect
Hmm.
at the exact same time. And then plus two, we have children and we have people who are growing up in an era where they are social media natives, and a lot of them are moving away from religious institutions, whether it's
Yes.
a church, whether it's a mosque, whether it's any kind of religious institution. And, I'm not a religious person, yet at the same time, I respect that as a foundation in terms of the liberation theology
Hmm.
that we learned in order to obtain our levels of freedom in many different type of ways we organize in those type of bodies, and the type of values that we learned as extensions of our families in our
Right.
communities,
Right.
and those type of frameworks and structures in terms of social norms and everything else. You have children and people who are growing up now that don't even have that as a point of reference,
Right. Right.
where they don't even know that certain things are like, you would never talk to an elder that, and they may not even know the language of what an elder is,
Mm. Mm.
or they may not even have a concept of what ancestry is.
Hmm.
These
Hmm.
are things that are not even a part of their vocabulary, and usually they're not going to see that online unless they search
Right.
specifically for certain type of things, because a lot of times, because of the algorithm, they're scrolling, it's not going to come across their feed like that, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Um,
I think you just
those
highlighted the
guys,
importance of getting outside, man, and right, like don't get me wrong, we can only do so much on social media and YouTube, but the real work is out there.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think things are going to eventually run its course,
Hmm.
meaning these type of platforms that are ambulance chasing and
Yeah.
they're constantly looking for different drama and to talk about somebody and to do reaction videos of what this person said and everything else, that gets tiring and exhausting,
Right. Right.
because your whole trajectory is based upon somebody else. You're
Yes.
not even really fully living your own purpose or
Right.
setting that as a standard. It is solely based upon what everybody else is doing.
Hmm.
That's no different than being a busybody in real life and you
Hmm.
just into everybody else's business and you're not really doing anything. They're just
Right.
doing it in the digital space. In the same way, people that are not actually doing that in real life, they're not actually doing that in the digital space either. And
Mm.
that will run its course of time, just like people that's not really doing anything in real life is gonna run their course of time too.
I
You know.
agree 100%, and that's a great segue for this next question. First, look, God, like I mentioned offline,
Mhm,
um, MC, author, writer, community organizer, five
mhm.
percenter, so many different hats that you wear. How do you find the time to juggle it all? And also, why is it important to you? Because to actually see these ideas through, to take these ideas from knowledge to born. I feel like, there's a quote that always stuck with me that, that so I don't know who said it, but the quote was paraphrasing here, where a lot of times the greatest ideas that we have die in the graveyards of our mind, right? And
Mm.
you have been somebody that I have known to actually follow through with the things that are that you come up with that are important to you. Can you just talk about that some? Because again, you've inspired many through your works, but I think that's one thing that it would be important to touch on.
Wow. Yo, guys. So our knowledge degree, the one of 14s. Have you not heard your word shall be bond regardless of what? Yes, my word is bond is life, and I give my life if a
On
word
my
shall
work shall
fail.
fail.
My word is bond to that type of work.
Mm.
Everybody has a word is bond.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Whether you
Facts.
smoking Newports, whether you out at the club every night at the strip club, making it rain or whatever, everybody's word is bond to something.
Mm.
Mine just happens to be my commitment to striving to change the landscape of my community and making contributions that are going to outlive me.
Right.
And it's all self-motivated. It's not because, somebody's prompted me to do this type of work or I want to go out and prove somebody wrong. It's not even external. It's
Mm-hmm.
all internal and type of care and standards and expectations I have for myself.
Mm.
Like I'm not a shortcut person.
Right.
I'm not no person that's going to do a half-ass job. And if I get involved in something, I'm going to give it 100%. And I always strive to map things out in such a way where I have the ability personally to take it from knowledge of born. And if there's certain people that are experts or they have certain type of skills that are necessary to help me in that process, I will only connect with those whose word is also bond to that particular activity
Right.
because the success of it is always going to be on me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if other people want to add on and assist or whatever, that's cool. But I have already mapped it out that I'm going to make knowledge born and I'm going to execute and follow through. And because I have that reputation, people see that and they know that if I'm involved, I'm going to make sure that it happens.
Right.
And I'm not going to, because my name is on that,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Right.
And people have the same kind of mentality when it comes to other different areas of life.
Mm-hmm.
You have some people who, I know folks that, younger boys that play basketball and they play basketball 7 days a week.
Right. Right.
They're
Right.
that committed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen younger brothers that started off doing that and they made it to the biggest stage in the world, to the NBA.
Hmm.
because their work ethic and their commitment to doing that,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know, so it's no different than anybody else. I just happen to be invested in like community work and striving to be a resource to others and to learn things well enough so that I can teach it to somebody else so they can do it themselves. So
Yes.
I've also never put myself in a position to be like a mediator or intercessor to a person being able to have access to doing things themselves. Like that is the purpose of it, you
Right.
know? But
Right.
one thing I had to learn
Hmm.
is that everybody doesn't have that same type of mentality
Mm.
of reciprocity,
Right.
you know,
Right.
where I'm willing to be abundant and to give and to assist. And sometimes I've done that for people who have not done that in return for other people, you
When
know?
you
So
see
I've
that,
had to be,
what kind of what goes through your mind whenever, because again, obviously, like, this is supposed to be, uh this is not just about the individual, it's about the community and creating other members within said community to continue on the work. And like, so whenever you see that
yeah.
reciprocity not always being, returned, does that kind of like make you not want to, deal with that individual on the level of community work anymore? Or is it more like, I know where to keep him at this point, but we'll make it work.
Yeah, I eventually get to that point of
Mhm.
knowing how to deal with them differently. But the first response to that is I get hurt.
Yeah.
It's hurtful when our people do that, and then
Mhm.
you get disappointed too, because sometimes I may have expectations of people within our community and expect more of them. But I had to learn that too. You know, you
Mhm.
can't assess them according to your own yardstick and how
Right.
you consider yourself. You know, and you have to deal with people based upon who they are.
Hmm.
And sometimes that may have been a $10,000 lesson that you just learned,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right. Right.
or
Right.
you might have learned another type of way that this is who this person is, and you have to deal with them a certain type of way, you know. And it's like with anybody, you know, that you have a family, but there's certain family members that you know, you're cordial to,
Yeah.
but you ain't hanging out with them like that, you
Right.
know, but you strive to maintain and keep it respectful. You
Hmm.
know, that's one thing that I learned when I was in East Africa, that when our people had conflict with each other, you would never see it in the public.
Mm.
I've been there 4 times in the last like maybe 3 years,
Hmm.
and I never seen like a public conflict,
Right.
like people arguing and
Wow.
going back and forth.
Wow.
They must do that indoors or something, but they do not do that publicly. It's not a part of the social norms. And
Hmm.
for clarification, I was in Tanzania and Ethiopia and in Zanzibar,
Hmm.
and the culture there, it was like many of the things that we talk about here in America, but unfortunately, a lot of the geographic location as well as the social norms and the societal expectations and the system of capitalism, it doesn't it makes it very, very, very difficult to live out certain
Yeah.
levels of liberation.
Right. Right.
Very, very, very difficult. You know,
Hmm.
one thing I've also learned is like there's things that we've been learning our whole life that I had a chance to really see fully formed and functioning
Mm.
in an environment where our people are, that have a connection to one another and connection to the land that we've always talked about and that we've always seen as core to who we are as human beings.
Yeah.
But in this society, you know, we get indoctrinated and socialized to be further and further away from who we are. Just like you say, we've been taught how to eat the wrong foods,
Hmm.
you know,
And made
mentally as
other.
well as physically, and
Yeah.
made other than
Yeah.
ourselves,
Made other
you
than our
know.
own selves. Yep.
And then the challenge too is still realizing that and being able to distinguish that from the person that is embodying that.
Mm.
Meaning, in church, they would always tell us, you know, you hate the sin, not the sinner,
Right. 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 Right.
or you recognize what has happened to us. You know, you think about some of our elders that came before us, like it was, you know, think about, you know, it was rough to love one another more than we loved ourselves and to
Mm.
still stay committed and not turn our backs on our family and our community members because we've been made so other than ourselves. I
Right.
think some people overlook that level of love and commitment and willingness to be connected to our people through all of that.
Yes.
You
I
know,
I
it's
agree.
challenging.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think they overlook the fact that historically we did that from emancipation and creating, like the idea of family reunions because different members of your family would have been sold to different plantations. Like we wouldn't have made it this far without each other. Um,
Hmm.
what you've been to East Africa 4 times. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait till I get a chance to go out there. But
Yeah.
what prompted your trips to the motherland?
So, I've for the longest, I work quite a bit on numerous different projects.
Yeah.
I tell people sometimes I work 25 hours a day and eight
Mhm.
days a week.
Right, right,
But the,
right.
the beauty of it is I love everything that I do, so it
Mhm,
doesn't feel like work,
mhm.
and one of my close companions, she had told me one time, like, Saladin, you still need some self-care. I know that you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work or whatever, but you still have to take time for yourself,
Right.
and I travel and do different like public presentations and speaking engagements and workshops and stuff like that. But in terms of just like traveling, like for just to relax
Hmm.
and for self care, I haven't really done anything like that. And I've been striving to learn to create those pockets of time for myself
Right.
to recharge and energize. And it was around shortly after the pandemic, and it was close to my degree day. And I was like, man, I feel like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. so, so I talked to my two eldest queens, and they found a place for me to stay. They looked up and they
Mhm,
were like, "You would probably like this," and they booked me a location, which was a 70-acre banana farm resort in
mhm,
Tanzania, in a place called Arusha.
mhm.
So that's where I stayed. And when I went, I just went to enjoy myself, to explore. I did like a 1 day Kilimanjaro. It was like
Mm.
I think it was like 8 hours up and 5 hours down or something like that. I
Wow.
was all over the place. I was way
Right.
out in the Serengeti amongst
Right.
the Maasai tribe, and I was in the city,
Wow.
and I was everywhere.
Yeah.
And when I experienced this, I'm like, on my way back to America, I'm like, I have to figure out a way to bring others back.
Yes. Right.
It took me, the banana farm resort that I stayed on, they grew 15 different kinds of bananas there.
Wow.
And they had all organic gardens. They had a mountain stream from a mountain called Mount Meru, where you can drink the water with your hands.
And that sounds like paradise, man.
It was, it
Wow.
was,
Mm.
so, and all I could think about coming back to America was like, I have to figure out a way to bring others back with me.
Yeah.
And within 7 months, I brought 7 people from
Wow,
around
that's
the United
dope.
States back with me. And each successive time, I brought a number of more people with me. So the next trip that me and one of my partners are planning is July 2026, the
Mm.
Knowledge Cipher Day to like the Knowledge Born Day, and we're doing a youth trip.
Hmm.
And this time, we were able to get 20 youth sponsored to be able to come with us on this trip.
Wow,
And
man.
all they're going to have to do is get their passports.
See,
All they're going to have to do is get their passports.
that's the type of thing that changes the whole direction of a child's life. Being able to
Yeah,
see something different, go home, like that just
yeah,
changes the whole trajectory of things. Even if
yeah,
you don't, not even saying that you have to come from a tough environment, even if you don't, right? Like even you could be coming from the best environment, right? But
yeah,
being able to take those type kind of trips and see the world, that just does
yeah,
something. That does something that,
yeah,
you know, uh, it, you can't get from
yeah.
books, you can't get from really anything else, but
Mm-hmm.
actually getting out there.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just talking about the continent of Africa,
Hmm.
right? America is less than 1% of the total square mileage of the planet. And most people don't even really explore America like that. So their
Right.
whole worldview is shaped in less than 1% of this planet,
Mm.
on top of the propaganda that they're getting from social media.
Right. Right.
So even just checking out America is important
Yes.
because you get a chance to meet your folks and other people from all different type of places and try different foods,
Hmm.
learn different elements of culture, see the various different landmarks and the historical legacy of people in different places just in America, you
Right.
know? So when I went, I connected with locals there as well. And
Mm.
that's important because you have foreigners that come to the continent and they harvest our resources like organ harvesting.
Mm.
And they set up these grand hotels and all of this other stuff along various different areas. And then they hire locals as fronts as if it's an authentic experience. But yet you got foreigners just making the money.
Right.
So when I got there, I made sure I connected with our people so that when I go, I'm dealing directly with our people. And then the people that I bring with me, I'm not doing this as no travel agent or I'm not getting paid for none of this. I'm telling people exactly how much everything costs
Hmm.
because this is what you're paying. I
Right.
just want to stand back and I want to enjoy the
Hmm.
experience with you because when I went the first time, I didn't have nobody to talk to when I got back.
Mm.
It
Right.
was hard, you know,
Right.
and I didn't eat a banana for like 5 months when I got back here. It
Wasn't the
was
same.
difficult.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I had a chance to take my youngest, Nusha, with me, and she was power years old.
Hmm.
Her total mentality is just taking her there,
Mm.
yo. Like
Wow.
her
Mhm.
mentality is entirely different. Like I was asking her the other day, um, what was one of the most beautiful people, places, and things that you ever seen in your life? Immediately, she was like Zanzibar,
Wow.
and
Wow.
she could say that, you know. And then
Hmm.
now also she understands, and we say that we are the makers and the owners of the planet Earth, and we know every square inch of it. And it's like those are the dimensions of our home.
Yes.
He's having an opportunity to practically explore and understand that, which means, in terms of her psychological orientation, she was telling me the other day, like, Dad, I don't think I want to go to India. Like, like that's down the street. That's
Right.
how she sees it.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know, she's like, yeah, I think I want to go to France. Like it's nothing to
Yeah.
her.
But that's
You know what I
dope.
mean?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
important. It's important to have that kind of mentality. You know
Yes.
that that you are greater than what we've been told that we are,
Mm.
and a lot of it happens through just travel, local, you know, travel, you know, within the domestic realm of this country, and then international travel as well. The
Yeah.
same money people be paying to go to Disneyland, yo, take that and go somewhere else
Right. Right.
and learn some things and to travel some places and have those kind of experiences,
You're right,
you
because it's
know?
probably around the same as far as you taking a family or something to Disney World or Disneyland is expensive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, that's cool. I know some families they do that every year.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, I'd rather hit East Africa. I can't lie to you.
Yeah, yeah. So
Y-
that, you know, that's important, you know, and I wanted to make sure that's available to other people as well. So we right now have 20 students that we're going to be taking from here in Western New York, where I live at, and that's just 20 students. I got one of my colleagues reached out to me yesterday and told me that she wants to bring her nephew with us too. So that's 21 students. And
Dope.
then I'm in talks with another organization and they have committed to sponsoring bringing youth as well. And that's the way that you do it. You know, you
Yeah.
create a circle of leverage where once you get some people who have already committed to it in extension to of yourself,
Hmm.
people may feel more comfortable to be supportive of it. And that's just also a part of just important community work
Yeah.
and collaborations and partnerships. You know, once you get, and I always tell people, you have to invest in that first.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
if people don't see that you have invested in it, like
Hmm.
why should they even take their hard-earned money or resources to invest in something that you are not even that committed to, that you haven't even done it?
Right.
But when you show and prove that, and then you get other people to support that, it's easier to get other people to be a part of that as well, you know, because at the same time, some people may not share your vision.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that in time as well, that sometimes people may not want to be a part of it or to join it because they simply can't see your vision and
Right.
they don't know how they can contribute to it. But once you get things going, then over time, that vision may materialize to the point where now they can actually start seeing it.
Hmm.
And for some people, you still have to create an entry point for them to be able to add on down the line.
Yeah.
Because in all honesty, they just couldn't see it in the beginning.
Right.
But some people have a mentality like you wasn't in the gym shooting J's with me,
Yeah.
so you
Right.
wasn't practicing with me in the gym, so I ain't bet. Don't mess with me later on. But it's like that's not always. Some people just didn't know where the gym was.
Right. Right. No, that's
You
real. That's
know
real.
what I
Um, one of the
mean?
we mentioned before all the projects that you're involved in. Um, again, it's
Hmm.
so much. So a few things I wanted to ask about some of the different things that you're working on. And can you
Uh-huh.
talk about the Niagara Falls Underground Railroad Heritage Center and the things that you did with that?
Oh yeah, yeah. So we opened in May of 2018. So I'm one of a number of people that helped open this institution.
Mm,
And when you're opening an institution like that, one of the first things we had to do is it was really based upon being able to save a historic building from being demolished.
okay.
So our Heritage Center is in a customs house that was built in 1863.
Wow.
And it was in threat of being demolished. So a bunch of us community members came together to actually save the building, get it on a historic registry, and
Hmm.
to preserve it.
Hmm.
And then we had to find funding to be able to stabilize it and to restore it.
Yeah.
Once we were able to do that, we decided to create it as our Niagara Falls Underground Railroad Heritage Center,
Mm,
which highlights Underground Railroad history as well as the role of Black abolitionists in the city of Niagara Falls, because the city of Niagara Falls is literally one of the last stops or terminus in North America in terms of being in the United States over to the border in the Canadian side.
right.
So when
Right.
people get here to Niagara Falls, they can literally see Canada. So we have a lot of stories of our people that had the agency to be able to not only emancipate themselves, but to help emancipate each other.
Hmm.
So in building this site, we had to find funding in terms of researchers, historians. My specific role was in the interpretation of content.
Mm,
And that is something that I always tell people that's vitally important,
hmm.
because you can have people that find facts
Yeah.
and data, but how are you sharing this and interpreting it in the world and in the
Right.
public domain?
Right.
Who has control over that narrative?
Hmm.
And if you're telling it, are you centering the stories and the voices of your people?
Yeah.
Or
Right.
are you decentering them?
Right.
A lot of people don't put thought into any of that, and you're actually shaping the not only the content, but the consciousness of not only your community, but society as a whole by
Hmm.
how you tell those stories. So my specific role was in taking the content and the history and how do we share these stories to the public, right?
Right.
So we've been open for God years now.
Nice.
Um, and yes, I was heavily involved in that particular project, and I'm more like the public face of the Heritage Center. So I do a lot of the public presentations, a lot of the um, content around like news, as well as documentary work, and then also my family's directly connected to the Underground Railroad because one of my third great grandfathers was Josiah Henson,
Yep.
and
I was gonna get
yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so he was the figure that Harriet Beecher Stowe used as a central narrative for her book Uncle Tom's Cabin, and
Mhm.
he crossed in a place which is in proximity to Niagara Falls, where I rest at, in Buffalo, New York, on October 28th, 1830. He
Mm.
crossed over into the Canadian side with his family, 4 children, and his wife. He eventually moved further north to a place called Dawn at the time,
Mhm.
which now is called Dresden, Ontario, Canada. And
Mhm.
then he had children and they had children. And then eventually my grandmother was born through his family in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Now, St. Catharines is a place that at the time was called Colored Village
Okay.
because a lot of our families that crossed over to the Canadian side, we would set up our own communities.
Mhm.
Colored Village, Little Africa, names like that.
Wow.
And she was a member of the historic Salem Chapel that's on Geneva Street. That's right in the center of Colored Village in St. Catharines. And this is the same church that Harriet Tubman attended when she made it across the Canadian side, when she
Wow.
was living in a boarding home across the street.
Mhm.
Now, what's ill is my grandmother, her name was Inez Dorsey. So a lot of my family are still over on the Canadian side with last names like Dorsey, Harper, Bell,
Hmm.
Nicholson, some of the first families that settled there coming through the Underground Railroad. And my grandmother, her parents' name was Joseph Dorsey and Edith Harper.
Hmm.
Edith Harper's parents' name was Charles Harper and Harriet Harper. And then Charles Harper's parents was named James Harper and Margaret Harper. Now, James and Margaret are from Columbia, South Carolina, because I have a census record of where they were born.
Yeah.
And when I'm looking at the census record with their family, 2 years after I found that census record in Columbia, South Carolina, I find another census record of them in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada.
Wow.
So I don't know how they made it from Columbia, South Carolina, all the way up to St. Catharines. But what I do know is that when they made it up to South, made it up to St. Catharines, James Harper became the pastor of the Salem Chapel at the same time that Harriet Tubman was attending there. So my other third great
Oh,
grandfather was Harriet Tubman's pastor at that time.
wow. See,
So,
see,
you
I was
know,
gonna, wow, first off, that's like whenever you come across that kind of history and you know, and your ancestral ties to that history, like I know that has to be, you know, I mean, you have to have a sense of pride just, whenever you begin to learn these type of things. How has knowing that
yeah,
kind of shaped, like, who you are and your outlook?
yo, God, I tell you this: when you do genealogy research,
Hmm.
one thing that you realize is now you're putting context to the seemingly um, neutral conversations that you may hear around the dinner table or at family gatherings.
Hmm.
So let me give you an example. You may hear your great aunt say something like, "Yeah, we had yeah, my great aunt Gertrude, she lived on a reservation."
Hmm.
That's all you may hear,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Or you may hear somebody say, "Yeah, yeah, that's so and so's grandson, and he used to be the deacon at so and so's church. That's the church so and so went to." And it's just conversation
Yeah.
where you may not know no documentation or whatever, or even if you're young, then you're really not thinking about those type of connections. So doing this research, it confirmed a lot of things for me and brought to life stories that I've heard my whole life
Wow. Right.
that
Right.
I never really knew the value and importance of until I started to find service records of people who fought in the military.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or I see that this was a deacon and a pastor of an African Methodist Episcopal church, and how my whole life I've been constellated around mentors and people who are a part of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and
Right.
not realizing why that connection had always been there until I start finding all of these folks that were very important in terms of teaching liberation theology as a
Mm.
part of these core institutions in our communities.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so it brought to life a lot of the stories that I just heard, just casual conversations around family,
Hmm.
and putting those stories to life and then wanting to learn a lot more.
Yeah.
My grandmother, Inez, one of her sisters' name was Aunt Gertrude. And Aunt
Hmm.
Gertrude, she was a violinist, and
Right.
she was married uh, to a man that was a poet.
Hmm.
And this man, he used to perform poetry publicly.
Hmm.
I was also some of my ancestors too. The first black hockey team that was organized in the province of Ontario. So a province is the same thing as a state. So
Right.
Ontario is the province over in Canada that's close to the American border.
Hmm.
And the first hockey team that was organized within the province of Ontario was called the Orioles.
Oh, right.
and
Right.
and the Orioles was organized through the Salem Chapel in St. Catharines.
Oh, the church. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
They organized the first hockey team, and it's a black hockey team. The
Dope.
first black hockey team was organized through that church
Dang.
by the pastors.
See,
And I
that's
have an image of the hockey team, and of the 12 people, seven of them are our family members.
wow. See, man, see
Seven
that's
of
some see, look,
them.
see that's some powerful history. And I know what it does to you. Because this year. doing my genealogy work as well, I found that like my fourth great grandfather in Virginia, he had about five children. One of them would have been obviously my third great grandfather, but his brother uh went to Liberia in around 18, I believe is like 1850, late 1850s, and he wrote letters back and forth to
Wow.
my fourth great grandfather, and they actually have those letters in a museum in Virginia. Yeah, and I plan on
Wow.
going to see it soon, and it just put so much
Yeah.
thing, and I'm like, man, I could actually have cousins in Liberia at this point, but it kind of puts in context not only like what our people went through, but my own family history, man, and I just got such a sense
Hmm.
of pride whenever I learned that information. And like you, I have been studying my genealogy for a while, and one thing it does, like you mentioned, it puts a lot of things in context for you. A lot of those things, like even like where a lot of history is stored, like those old family Bibles and stuff like that, like um it's yeah,
Hmm.
anybody that can, I would suggest, hey, that's one of the most important works you can do because we often talk about knowledge itself, but I think that's one of the aspects of
Hmm.
knowledge itself, knowing who your people are.
Hmm. Exactly. And you don't have to lean into mythology,
Mm.
you know,
Right,
and,
right,
and
true.
create these
Hmm.
narratives of who you think you are. You
Hmm.
can literally go look and find out,
Yep,
you
yep.
know. I mean, you may come across some records where in one column it may have M for mulatto.
Hmm.
You may find that,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? But it gives you much more of a concrete perspective of who you actually are because you're really a composite of everyone that came before you.
Right.
And you have certain temperaments, certain tastes,
Hmm.
certain inclinations and proclivities that have been literally passed on to you. You know, so I know that when you found that, I know you was like, what?
Yeah, and I called
Because
my
you're really
pops. I
doing
was
the
like,
same
"Did you?"
thing.
Yeah, because I called my pops. I said, "Hey, I got something to show you." And his mind was blown, and my cousins, and and so like I have become like the family history guy that all my peoples come to. But I honor that position and that role in my
Yeah,
family. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yo. See, that's how we connect because I'm the same role in my family,
Right, right,
you
right.
know? And you're doing the same thing in a digital space right now.
Mm,
The same thing that one of your ancestors are doing with actual written letters.
right.
You're creating spaces like that in a digital space.
Wow, wow. That's deep.
You know what I'm
That's deep.
saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and it's crazy because it becomes a rabbit hole. You know, you start learning about different people and the stories,
Mm,
and that's what people I think they oftentimes just they take for granted. You know, it's data and statistics that doesn't move people. Stories do.
yes,
Stories,
yes.
knowing the stories and the journeys of people, because sometimes you can learn stories that seems that it's beyond human capacity.
Hmm.
Like, how were they able to persevere through that? How
Right.
were they able? What did they do?
Hmm.
How did they cope?
Right.
All of those things are important to learn those stories because part of our trajectory may be the same journey of those that came before us. And it's important to have the information to know how they dealt with certain challenges and how they were able to navigate around certain type of obstacles. If you don't have that information, you're missing a complete reference library of life.
Yeah.
You know, so we talk about our book of life, but that's also a part of our book of life.
Yeah.
The
Actual
stories of our
facts.
ancestors, the good, the bad, the ugly, the triumphs, the failures, all of the different things that they did, because we may find ourselves standing at the same fork in the road and needing the proper knowledge to make the wisest choice of which way to actually go. And
Right.
that's what we should be able to reference that. And everybody else do it.
Yeah.
You know, I know folks that are Irish and they can show you a coat of arms that goes back to their family, or their
Hmm.
family's from England and they got that, or they Italian and they can show you the village that where they get their last name from.
Right.
Like
Right.
they're still connected and they have that legacy and that continuity of culture that has enabled them to sustain themselves today. But many of us, part of knowledge itself is reclaiming our culture, and a part of that is also the unlearning of a lot of the things that we've been taught to be other than ourselves. And a
Yes.
lot of people don't want to do that kind of shadow work,
Oh,
to be
that's tough.
self-reflective and to just be honest about just how we've been made other than who we are and what we can do. Sometimes it may require professional assistance,
Right. Right.
actual professional assistance, that
Right.
you're not going to get with Supreme Mathematics or at a church or at a mosque. You may need to go see somebody professionally to
I
help you
saw something.
process and unpack.
I saw an article that
Mm-hmm.
said that, the Black community in America, it was like from a scientific journal that
Mm-hmm.
growing up the way we times grow up, we have certain levels of PTSD that combat soldiers have,
Mm-hmm.
and so whenever you say like sometimes professional help is required, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
100%, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, when I'm just reading that, I'll send that over to you if you want to peep. But yeah, that was kind of eye
Okay.
opening because I
Yeah.
just felt like,
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of sparked that thought as well.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to
And then
ask
the
you.
challenge with that too, God, is
Mhm.
I was going to say the challenge with that too is that we may not have much representation in those spaces in terms of appropriate cultural competence.
Mm,
So we may be dealing with some PTSD, but there may not be no cultural competence in the person that's professionally dealing with us.
right,
So they're
right.
gonna
That's a
try to
good
address
point.
it like, like there's no racism. Like you're gonna have to articulate how that impacted us. But people shy away from that. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
so that's a challenge too. We may not have a lot of representation of people that we can go to that actually understands, like, yeah, that PTSD came directly from these generations of trauma that we've been going through as a people, specifically as prisoners of war within this country.
Right.
You don't really have no therapist that's going to sit there and go in like that. They're going to
Nah.
talk about, well, it's neutral, and and how are you feeling today? And your mom and your dad, like, nah,
Right.
we need to talk about this monster. you
Right.
know
Right.
so that's challenging too.
Yeah. No, that's a
you know
great point.
Mhm.
Due to the fact of obviously everything's online, everybody's online, social media, everybody's glued to their phones. Do you think that within the advent of just how everything is all out in the open now, that a lot of people have a misunderstanding about who the 5% are?
Yeah, a lot of people have a misunderstanding about who everybody is. We
Yeah,
just a
right.
part of that.
We're just a
We're
part of
part of
that.
that soup.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The unfortunate part about it is other people may have like a ADL, an
Mm.
anti-defamation league or something, and they may
Yeah,
have
we don't have that
representation,
protection.
yeah, where they can counter
Hmm.
narratives and check people and sue people and do all of this other kind of stuff in order to make sure that their identity, even within the digital domain, has a sense of their cultural integrity intact.
Right.
But just like us in the real world, many of us may not have the same ability to protect our identity
Hmm.
just in our own physical spaces and communities. And it's the same way online.
Yeah.
It's not only with us, the 5%, but you see it with any of our groups. We are constantly under attack, and I think that many of us may not put as much thought into the importance of being able to protect ourselves, not only physically
Hmm.
in actual communities, but also like in the digital domain. And I've strived to be at the forefront of striving to warn people about that
Hmm.
and to give them information and ways that we can protect ourselves. But unfortunately, I think that some of our people may get the memo a little bit too late. And the unfortunate part about it is sometimes we have a tendency, just as a people, oftentimes to be reactionary
Yeah. Right.
with things and not be proactive about putting things in order and in place. Um, Especially, I mean, but those of us who are more conscious and aware of history and trends and things that have happened, we have a greater sense of how to protect ourselves and to position ourselves. But a lot of times, many of our people may not know, and sometimes it may be too late.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even you look at like with the technological advances right now, many of us are still behind in terms of how to utilize some of these tools that are going on right now
Hmm.
in order to utilize it to our benefit. Here's an example. Just a month ago for Indigenous Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, one of my colleagues who's an Indigenous artist that's out in California, her and a network of other Indigenous people did a guerrilla art exhibit at the Met in New York. And
Wow.
what they did is they went in the American uh, section where they have all of these historical point paintings,
Hmm.
and they reimagined them utilizing augmented reality. So what you
Mm.
can do is you can just go right into the museum
Hmm.
and hold your phone up to a painting
Hmm.
that's there, and the augmented reality changes the actual painting to what they wanted to put there
Mm.
with
That's dope.
dialogue and everything.
Right.
They didn't have to have no permission. You can't stop it.
Right.
All you could actually do is close off that section of the museum,
Right.
but you can just be in there like everybody else and just literally reimagine a space centering your own people. That
Yeah.
is an effective and progressive way to utilize technology in order to center our people and to create space for us in institutions where we're usually non-existent. And if
Right.
we are in existence, it's a shaped power dynamic where we have no identity and no power in those places. So they use
That's
that technology for that. You know what I
yeah, that no, that's such a
mean?
doper way to use that technology compared to people making videos of Tupac and Michael Jackson talking to each other like, yo, like what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like a lot of these,
Yeah,
it's I don't know. But one thing
yeah.
one thing I definitely I gotta ask you about. Yo, nothing lasts
Hmm.
forever. You
Hmm.
C Knowledge, Bone Crusher, King Crooked. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Let everybody know about that joint. I mean, those are legendary MCs. And
Oh yeah.
like let everybody know how that I guess formulated and because that's I mean any anytime we can make music and get our art out there and do it with legends, man. It's always dope, man. And again, is that's that
Yeah.
that's that track is full of legends. So like, yeah, how did that come about?
Yeah. So that's a beautiful project called Galactic Love Supreme. So
Mm,
anybody could go online and check it out. And it's a collaborative project with a group called 80 Empire. It's two
hmm
brothers of Italian ancestry, and they're based in Canada.
hmm
And then Sea Knowledge from Diggable Planets. And they came together, and one of the brothers, Adrian, who was a part of 80 Empire, I was out on the Canadian side doing a presentation about Black history and the Underground Railroad.
hmm
And he brought his daughter to the presentation. And it's funny because he came up to me after the presentation, was like, "Peace, God, what's today's mathematics?" Right? So we
Right.
start building,
Hmm.
and he was telling me about projects that he's worked on before with C Knowledge. And then they brought me into the project to add some contributions in terms of some poetry. And, it was history from there. The
Hmm.
intro that I do on the album is crazy because I was driving to Allah Born, which is Albany, New York.
Yeah.
And I was driving to a historic Underground Railroad site, the Steve and Harriet Myers house,
Hmm.
who were connected to Harriet Tubman.
Hmm.
So I was driving there for a meeting, and I was building with one of the brothers on the Canadian side, and he had sent me the track. While I'm driving across the state, I'm listening to this in the vehicle, and I'm coming up with the words in my head while I'm driving.
Mm.
And once I get to the Stephen and Harriet Myers house in Albany, I'm sitting out front. And what people hear on the intro of that album is what I literally recorded in
Wow.
front of this historic site that's a part
Wow.
of the Underground Railroad. And I sent it to
Wow.
him.
Uh-huh.
He put that joint together, and that's the first collaborative album that we've done, and we're working on part two right now, Galactic Love Supreme, part two, and I'm gonna be doing more rhyming on that project. But
Yeah.
it was dope to be a part of a project like that that aligns with how I live and how I see the world,
Right.
and not to be involved in things that are contrary to how I live, or what I would teach or what I would stand for.
Hmm.
Something I would be proud of that would stand the test of time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man, and that's again one of the examples of you having your hands in a lot of different things, and I think it's just extremely dope. Um, Last thing I wanted to ask you, um, there, so I haven't seen the movie, but I want to say that I saw some people tweeting about it. But in that movie with isn't there a new Spike Lee movie with Denzel, Highest to Lowest? And
Uh-huh.
apparently there's a scene with
Mm-hmm.
five percenters, uh, and um, and I don't know if they, I don't know. Like I saw on the discourse, I saw, you know, some people saying, "Hey, it's cool. It makes people more interested about who we are." Others is like, "Yo, they didn't get it right and exact." Like, how do you feel when, movies, TV shows, use our imagery or language, in part of telling a larger story?
Yeah, so like we just shared recently, it's not like we have an ADL,
Hmm. Hmm. Right, right, right,
and we
right,
don't
right.
have like an actual, organization or department that deals with public relations as a general body
Hmm.
of nation members, and that is a big disadvantage to us,
Hmm.
because a lot of times there's no way to really check or to be able to respond to different things like that. Because I've been in the digital space for some time, I often get, requests from like online publications or reporters, or journalists asking questions for clarity about something like that.
Hmm.
And I'm thankful that they would ask me, or I
Yeah.
would be thankful if they asked somebody like you. But unfortunately, just like what reporters have generally done, if some fires happen in the community, they go around and they look for the person with the shower cap on, and then run and stick a microphone in their
Right,
face. They're not
right.
going to look at the person with the suit on,
Yeah.
or somebody that they think is going to give them an intellectual response to what's happening.
Hmm.
They're going to do something for views, and so they can monetize content. Again, it's a propaganda machine.
Hmm.
And a lot of times we're not prepared or thinking how to deal with that type of propaganda machine. I was telling somebody the other day, I actually have sound bites in my head that are FAQs, or frequently asked questions, that people have about the 5%, so that
Mm.
I can just respond right then and there based upon the questions they have.
Right,
So I
right.
don't give them a lot of room and stuff to spin things or to make something into something that is not.
Yeah.
So whenever I see us on stages like that, you know, we should have been, and we should be in a position to not only protect ourselves,
Hmm.
but also to be able to utilize that as an opportunity to monetize, for
Hmm.
us to be able to utilize that as a form of economic development. When you watch a film and you see somebody pick up a Pepsi can and drink a Pepsi in the film, Pepsi placed that in that film.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't just put that in there like, no, they had permission,
Hmm.
and they're paying them for that to be in that film.
Hmm.
Anything, it's all about product placement.
Hmm.
And many of us don't realize that we're also being utilized as product placement to be
Hmm.
commercialized and to be monetized.
Hmm.
And many of us, it may be difficult for us to to understand and grasp that. But in that film, there is a scene where one of the characters, who is Denzel, or the main character's homeboy,
Hmm.
he's like this quasi Muslim 5%er type guy.
Right.
He was in justice or locked up for some time, and he must have got access to knowledge while he was in there. So he has like a universal flag. He has one of our publications on his wall, but he also practices Islam in a religious way as well. So
Hmm.
people are going to be exposed to it of what it is. And some people may be interested to look up a little bit more about what it is, especially if they see conversation. But then, okay, when they look up and see where is it going to lead them?
Right.
You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
Right.
Many of
Right.
us are all over the place and may not be able to give a very comprehensive understanding of who we are. You know,
Yeah.
one of the things that I do, which is just a standard, is
Hmm.
if I come in contact with somebody and they're asking about the 5%, I don't just start rambling stuff off, telling them all of what I think they asking.
Hmm. Hmm.
I ask them, okay, so what inspired you to ask me that?
Right.
You
Right.
you when you ask that question,
Hmm.
then you know where to actually go.
Hmm.
Because if you don't even take no time I've seen this one time before. I'm standing back and I'm watching, and I seen some brother and somebody going up to them and asking them, like, you're 5%? Or I just stand back and I'm doing the knowledge. And that person the brother was so proud to build with them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the true and living God, this, that, and the third, blah, 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 blah. And the other person just sat there, nodding their head like that, listening and all this other stuff. And and the brother he thought he was building.
Yeah. Yeah.
When he finally was able to take a breath and he
Hmm.
walked away, I seen the person that was listening to them walk over to another person and say, "Oh yeah, he's an atheist. He believes in the devil."
Oh.
He didn't say nothing like that,
Right.
but
Right.
he never took the time to investigate why this person is even asking those questions before he can even share anything. And that's
Yeah.
just a standard protocol that I use. Somebody asking me that,
Hmm.
I'm going to ask them, okay, so what inspired you, to ask me something like that? They may say, oh yeah, somebody told me this before. Yeah, because my my cousin, he was locked up for a minute, and yeah, he got out and stuff, and he a 5%er now, and he hustles and stuff like that, and this and the third, and just giving me this whole litany and laundry list of the criminal activity this person is
Yeah.
involved in,
Yeah.
because that is what they think a 5%er is.
Mm.
So they were asking me to see if I was that.
Yeah.
And if I just
Right.
agreed, yeah, I'm a 5%er, yeah, because this and the third, and today's mathematics and doing all of that kind of stuff, they would have just took me and put me right in that box.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I don't even have a chance to build with them.
Right.
So I need to know what you're asking me this for
Hmm.
first,
Hmm.
before we can have any type of conversation, so that I can agree on the things that I can agree on, and I can disagree on the things that you're showing me that you don't have an understanding
Yeah.
about. So we're always to a disadvantage. And I think that some people don't realize that.
Right.
Like, we are to a disadvantage when we come in contact with people. We're behind enemy lines.
Hmm. Hmm.
And because of that, we have to strive to meet people where they are,
Right.
and, whenever we are in this public domain, it's unfortunate that there's going to be a lot of propaganda and everything, and I've had to learn to just accept that,
Yeah.
and do whatever I can,
Yeah.
and to be whatever kind of example that I can be, to make sure that I represent a good example of what our culture and what our principles and values are about. And that's also a part of what I do with the United Nations. So I've been working with the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. I was appointed to be a part of the International Civic Society Working Group
Mm.
back like 5 years ago. And basically what that is the United Nations. They realize that in all of the nations in the world that are a part of that League of Nations, or that general body, our people are unique in a sense, where issues that are happening to us in every nation, whether it's in the Netherlands, whether it's in Japan, or it's in Colombia, that we have unique issues that are dealing with our people in all of these different nations, and a lot of them are not being addressed
Hmm.
because it could be framed as civil rights issues, and that was some of the problems that was happening here in the United States, because a lot of the things that have always been happening with us, other countries will sit back and look at what's happening with us and be like, those are civil rights. You need to handle that with your own government.
Right. Right.
That's the issue that you have. And they ain't going to do shit.
Right. Right.
So then they stand back and say, well, we're not going to intercede because it's not a human rights issue. That ain't got nothing to do with us.
Hmm.
So when you reframe it, these issues as human rights issues that are connected to our people globally,
Hmm.
now everybody has to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you notice, what happened with MLK and what happened with Malcolm. Shortly after they started to reframe our issues as human rights issues,
Yeah.
that's when they were assassinated.
Yep.
And it's like that with many of our people.
Hmm.
So the UN created this permanent forum or a general body of people to represent our issues in every nation. And in order to represent our issues in every nation, they had to create an international civic society working group, or people who are subject matter experts in every nation around the world
Hmm.
that have areas of expertise that can inform the permanent forum
Hmm.
that would then take those recommendations to the general body of the UN. And they could then disseminate that back to these nations and tell them, like, yo, this permanent forum of people of African descent, they have recommended that we need to focus on what's going on with the instability of the government in Haiti.
Yeah.
That's one of the main issues. Or the maternal rates, death rates of our women that are happening globally.
Hmm.
Or reparations is an important issue. So being a part of that, we meet like twice a year.
Hmm.
Geneva, Switzerland, we always
Hmm.
meet there. And then we
Hmm.
have our general headquarters in the UN in Now Why, where we meet also. And it's pretty dope because I get a chance to meet our people from all over the world
All
who
over
are
the
working
world.
on the ground on many different issues. And I will tell you this,
Hmm.
a lot of the conversation that I see sometimes happening here in America
Hmm.
with the focus and the emphasis just on our American experience and American identity undermines our global connection to our
Mm.
people, because our people are dealing with anti-blackness all over the planet.
Right.
But if you've never been around folks,
Right.
usually when I'm in spaces like that, I'm of the minority in terms of being an English speaking person of African descent.
Hmm.
Most of the folks are speaking other different languages, and you go
Yeah.
other places, people minimally speak two languages,
Right. Right.
but they're
Right.
dealing with the same kind of anti-blackness in many different places around the world. And when we just think our experience is just solely unique to us in America,
Hmm.
we undermine the ability to connect with our global family and our efforts and resources to address things that are not only happening here, but are equally happening in other places as well. So it's a very divisive and unproductive mentality to singularly look at ourselves as we just have a unique and
Yeah.
soul experience here in America as a Black person that is a descendant of an enslaved person. Now, you had our people being enslaved in Brazil and
Hmm.
all of these other places.
Right.
They just speak a different language, but they
Right.
dealt with the exact same thing. And you cannot cut yourself off from our people who are in those places.
Man,
But it's
I'm glad you said
you
that,
know,
because that's one of the
yeah.
things that I try to tell people all the time as you see these growing movements that are trying to keep us divided. Like, no, this fight is international. This fight is global. And it's so dope to see you, a 5%er who is at these conventions. United Nations, and that's big. And so I just wanted to tell you, for one, it's always dope to build with you and have you on the show. But also, man, thank you for all the things that you do for our people in our community. I know it's a lot, you know what I'm saying? As you mentioned before, you got to make sure you put in some time for self-care. But, just wanted to build with you, God, and tell you that, yo, man, all of that is appreciated, man. Like, for real.
Oh, thank you, God, and the same for you. Keep persevering and doing what you do, and you definitely got to find some time for self care
I
too,
know, I
because I'll
know.
be seeing you. I'll be seeing you battling. I'll be, you taking on a battle that I haven't taken on. And that
Yeah.
that has been a part of your journey. You're a
Mhm.
warrior in that kind of sense.
Right.
So you definitely got to be able to find those kind of spaces and pockets as well, because there's a lot of ignorance that you
Mm.
are combating on the daily.
Yeah.
And, we need you in that kind of space, because you're also like a social, political, cultural documentarian.
Mm.
You're doing it in a digital space, because years from now, people will be able to refer back to not only the content and the important documents that you're creating in a digital space, but even the way that you ask questions and what you even
Mm.
discuss.
Mm.
Because you may have people that you're interviewing you may have seen them interviewing with everybody else, and they're asking them other different questions.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so the
Right.
work you do is very, very important. You're the only one doing that kind of work, and stay encouraged while you're doing it.
Man, peace, God. I really appreciate
Mhm.
that sincerely, man.
Peace.
Thank you.
Yeah, peace, God.
Peace to the God.